All right, Algebra. This is a new recording for lesson 5.3. I was informed some of my other video was messed up. I apologize for that. Still learning some of the fancy parts of this app. So I think my guess is I accidentally I found a microphone button I could have muted. So I'm guessing that's what I accidentally did. So I'm just going to recreate this real quick. Make sure you are on page 311 of your textbook. You didn't have any new vocab or anything to write, so we can just jump right into the lesson. The main thing to remember when dealing with multi-step inequalities is you are moving the numbers around to get them away from the variable, just like we did with equations. The difference being here, if you divide or multiply by a negative number at any time, you have to flip the sign. But we're going to go over some of those. So let's jump into the examples. Example 1, we have 3x minus 7 is less than 8. To solve for this, this is all this lesson is going to be telling you to solve all these. You're just rearranging till you have x by itself. So the first step is to move anything that doesn't immediately touch the variable. So the negative 7. So we do the opposite math, which is plus 7. So those cancel. I'm left with 3x less than 8 plus 7 would be 15. Then to get the 3 away from the x, since it is multiply, we divide. So you have x is less than 15 divided by 3 would be 5. The last thing that I ask you to do is to graph this. So you're going to draw a number line. And you can draw multiple lines if you want, or you can just say, hey, this is where 5 is. I don't have a burden either way. You can choose. Now to graph this, it doesn't have a equal to sign underneath here. It's just less than. So in that case, you're going to do an open circle. If it was equal to, you would do a filled in circle. And then x is everything less than that. So I'm going to go to the left of this as my graph. And that's it. That's all you have to do. All right, let's look at example 2. Example 2, solve. We have negative 0.6 times x minus 5, which is less than or equal to 15. Okay, now in this one, you have to do distributive property first. You have to simplify first. So you're going to have negative 0.6 x, because you just put them next to each other, saying that they're being multiplied. And then you have a negative times a negative, which makes a positive. And 0.6 times 5 is actually 3. Then you just rewrite to finish the sentence. Now we move the 3. It's a plus 3, so I'm going to subtract 3. Those cancel. I'm left with 0.6x still. Less than or equal to 15 minus 3 would be 12. And then our last step, since this is multiply, we're going to divide, and we're dividing by a negative number. Make sure you recognize that. So those cancel. I'm left with x. Since I divided by a negative, the sign has to flip. So I'm going to say greater than or equal to. And 12 divided by a negative becomes a negative 0.6, and this would be negative 20. Okay, so this is the big clue here. Since I've divided by a negative number, one side to the other side, the sign has to flip. That's the key to all of this today. All right, let's do a couple of the guided practice at the bottom, just to make sure you got this. So number 1 says 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to 23. Okay, so we're going to move the 5 first. So since it's a minus 5, we're going to plus 5. We have 2x less than or equal to, what's 23 plus 5? Be 28. 2 times x, so we're going to divide by 2. X, we divided by a positive number, so the sign does not change, and then 28 divided by 2 would be 14. Then if you have to graph this, okay, and again, I don't mind if you just go over here and say this is 14. Now you see here that it's less than or equal to, so you're going to do a filled in circle, okay? And then it's everything, x is everything to the left of that. Okay, so it should look something like that. All right, let's look at number 2, guided practice. I want to make sure you have enough examples here, guys. Negative 6y plus 5 is less than or equal to negative 16. All right, so my first step is to subtract the 5. Since it was addition over here, I'm left with negative 6y less than or equal to, what is negative 16 minus 5? It's going to go further negative, so it stays negative, and that would be negative 21. And then to get the y by itself, divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. Left with y. I divided by a negative, so I got to flip the sign. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so then you just have 21 divided by 6, which gives you 3.5. Now, if you were to graph this one, again, you can just say, okay, this is where 3.5 is. If you label it, then it doesn't really matter if you draw the rest of the lines. It is greater than or equal to, so I'm going to put a filled in dot. And then y is everything greater than that, so everything to the right. All right, let's look at number 3. Whoops, left the big marker on, sorry. All right, so this is negative 1/4. I would be writing all these in your journals, guys. P minus 12 is less than negative 2. Okay, so our first step is to distribute. So I get negative 1/4 P minus, what is negative times a negative makes it a positive, 1/4 of 12. Of course, is 3, and then greater than, and then minus 2. All right, so then I'm going to move the 3 by subtracting. So I'm left with negative 1/4 P. It's greater than, negative and a negative goes further negative, so this would be negative 5. Okay, now this is technically multiplication, so you would divide it. But remember, when you're dividing fractions, you actually flip the fraction and multiply. And you have to take the negative with it. So negative 4 over 1. So then these cancel. I'm left with just P is greater than. Negative times a negative is positive, so we know the answer is positive. 5 times 4 is 20 over 1, so it's just 20. P is greater than 20. And again, graphing this, I'm going to say that this is 20. And in this case, it is an open circle because it is not equal to. So I'm going to say open circle. And then it's everything to the right of this because P is greater than 20. All right, let's move on to example 3. All right, for example 3, we are going to solve 6x minus 7 is greater than 2x plus 17. Okay, so now you see on this equation, inequality, you have variables on both sides. So we got to get all the like terms on the same side. So anything that has an x, we need to move to the same side. Anything without an x, we need to move to the other side. So in this case, I'm going to start with subtracting 2x minus 2x. Those cancel. 6 minus 2 would be 4x. I could also go ahead and say plus 7 because I want to move that away from here. So that would be 4x is all I have left over here. 17 plus 7 is going to give you 24. Okay, so now we can divide the 4 away. And I'm left with x is greater than, the sign doesn't change because it didn't divide by a negative. And then 24 divided by 4 would be 6. Then to graph this, it's an open circle because it's greater than, not greater than, or equal to. And then it's greater than, all of x is greater than 6, so we're going to go this direction. Oh, I forgot to label. Make sure you label this so that I know what you're doing here. All right, let's look at example 4. Okay, now this one says solve the inequality if possible. So there will be times when you're solving an inequality and it doesn't come out to something that makes logical sense. And in those cases, you will say no solution. Your big hint here is that it says solve the inequality if possible. Anytime you see that, you know it's going to be, you could have the opportunity to have no solution. All right, so let's do A. We have 14x plus 5 is less than 7 times 2x minus 13. Sorry, minus 3. I know what I'm talking about. So the first thing we got to do is distribute this to simplify. So I'm just going to rewrite the first half because we're not going to change any of that. It's less than 7 times 2 would be 14x. 7 times a negative 3 would be negative 21. Then we got to get the like terms. So we're going to move the 14x to one side. So minus 14x minus 14x. Now you notice these cancel both sides. So I have left with 5 is less than negative 21. Can 5 be less than a negative number? No, this is a whole number. So this is one example of where you would say no solution. So if you come to the end of your equation and you've gotten rid of your variable x, you have to look at the statement that's left and see, well, is the statement true or false? In this case, it's false. You can't have 5 less than negative 21. So you'd say no solution. Now let's look at B. It's going to show you the other way this could happen. So for B, we have 12x minus 1 is greater than 6 times 2x minus 1. Okay, so again, we're going to distribute over here. So I'm just going to rewrite this first half. 12x minus 1 is greater than 6 times 2 is 12x. 6 times 1 is a negative 6. All right, so here I'm going to move my 12x to both sides, to the same side. You'll see that they cancel. I'm left with negative 1 is greater than negative 6. So I got rid of my variable, so I have to see, is this statement true or false? Well, is negative 1 greater than negative 6? On the number line, I'd have 0, zeros up here, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 6 would be here. So if I graph this, negative 6 is here, negative 1 is here. Is negative 1 greater than negative 6? Yes. So then the answer to this problem is all real numbers work in this situation. The reason all real numbers work, guys, is because if I plug in any number you give me to both places where this x is, this side is always going to be greater than this side. So any number I plug in, all real numbers, any number I put in for x is a true statement. So that's why your answer is all real numbers. Okay, let's do 2 more of these examples and then that'll be it. So I'm going to skip, well, no, let's do 3. Let's do all 3 of them. So this is the guided practice number 4. We have 5x minus 12 is less than or equal to 3x minus 4. So I'm going to subtract the 3x. 5 minus 3 would be 2x minus 12 is less than or equal to negative 4. So I'm going to add this 12. I get 2x is less than or equal to 12, and a negative 4 would give you 8. So then just divide by 2. I get x. I didn't divide or multiply by a negative, so my sign stays the same, and I have x is less than or equal to 4. Then to graph this, I'm just going to say 4 is here. It is less than or equal to, so it's going to be a filled in circle. And then it says everything, x is everything less than that, so I'm going to go this direction. Okay, so that's how you would graph that. Let's do number 5. Guide practice number 5. We have 5 times m plus 5 less than 5m plus 17. So, you guessed it, we're distributing first. 5m plus 5 times 5 would be 25. Less than 5m plus 17, so I'm going to subtract 5m. You see these cancel, I'm left with 25 is less than 17. Is 25 less than 17? Nope. So this one is no solution, because this does not work. Okay, so you can't graph this. So if it's telling you to graph all of these, in this case it tells you to graph the solution. Here's technically what the graph looks like. You don't put anything on it because it's not a true statement. So I'm not going to look for graphs if it comes out to be no solution. Don't worry about graphing it. Now, if you did it wrong and you're supposed to have graphed it, like on the last one, then that'll be a problem. All right, so number 6, guided practice. This is the last one we're going to do. I'm not going to do the next example. 1 minus 8s. I have to make my s's look funny, or otherwise they look like 5s. Negative 4 times 2s minus 1. All right, so let's distribute. So I'm going to say 1 minus 8s, because nothing changes over there, less than or equal to negative 4 times 2 would be negative 8s. Negative 4 times a negative 1 gives you positive 4. So now we're going to simplify. So I'm just going to say plus 8s plus 8s. So I'm left with 1 is less than or equal to 4. Now, is 1 less than or equal to 4? It's not equal to, but it is less than. So then this is a true statement, so you can say all real numbers. And I don't care if you do the number sign. Okay? So that's it for the lesson. I'm not going to do the example 5. I feel like you guys should have it by now. So this is lesson 5.3. You need to do the skill practice example or exercises numbers 3 through 35, just the odds. You don't have to do the evens. All right, and then please take a picture and upload this online. Holler if you have any questions or need any help.